Let me do this again.
We start for real this time.
Yes. Hey, what's up, everyone? It's your favorite group chat, Straight No Chaser. As you all know, I'm B. We have a fun conversation, fun, serious. It's really important to us. But before we jump into it, everybody else, why don't y'all give your highs?
Hi, everybody. It's Ayana.
What
I
happened?
just didn't want to go first. I didn't want to go
So for
Oh,
y'all that are listening, we play this game where we touch our nose. Um, and
when
wait
we
for who
don't
else
want to
doesn't
do
last when we
something.
don't want to do something. Giselle was trying not to go first to introduce herself,
first.
but by default it went that way. So go ahead, Giselle.
I took care of it
Uh,
already.
yeah, sorry. Well, I mean, I just had to take it from before front take me. I'm Giselle. Hi, guys. Why are you rolling your eyes? It's so early in the show.
Exactly.
I didn't even do nothing yet.
Exactly.
Hi,
Guys,
guys.
I'm literally recording. It's only been 2 minutes and we're already here. All
Well,
right.
they don't know where we were before this.
We've come a long way.
We've
Ew.
come a long way. This is great. This is
Ah.
fantastic.
Um, I know today's topic, we are specifically focusing on mental health,
Mental.
coping, different areas of what's important to people, what people are feeling comfortable to speak about, what they're not comfortable speaking with. Just a reminder for us and our listeners, this is a safe space, so nobody's obligated to talk about anything, but we are also so appreciative for those of you that have shared so much with us in our polling questions that we asked from you this week, and of course, even some of those open-ended questions as well. But with that, Jans, I'll let you take it away with some of that, and we'll jump in.
First of all, everybody keeps forgetting that we have to take a shot. The point is to take
Oh, yes. I
Yes,
a
forgot.
shot.
That's what we came for.
that is what we came for. That made me want to sing that song. What is that? Tell me
Hey,
what
don't
you
sing it.
used to know. Is it? No. Never mind. Never mind.
No,
Okay, cheers.
you're thinking of this is what
Hey,
you came for.
B. This is
Ah,
what
I can't.
we
Oh,
Don't sing it. Don't
yes.
sing it. Don't stop it.
Okay. 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 Cheers.
Thanks.
came.
Yeah, yeah, thanks.
Cheers. Cheers,
Cheers,
everybody.
guys.
Stop being a hater, Giselle.
Tell me how I'm supposed to breathe with no air.
Oh, got it.
Because I'm a hater.
Mm-hmm. That's all right. Moving on.
So, as B said, our topic for this episode is mental health. And we had IG poll and some open-ended questions. So thank you to all the people who participated in our um, little online quizzy quiz and for all the folks that shared in the open-ended questions. We will keep your information, you know, confidential, but we thank you for sharing this parts of your story that you feel comfortable sharing with us. So the first question, culturally, mental health has gotten the rap of being a taboo topic or non existent. Do you see that in your circle, family, or community?
Trying to
Giselle,
figure out what this voice is.
this is
Yes.
the this is the Miss World
I
finals.
feel like Jans is
I'm
auditioning.
reading the evening wear question, and y'all are the
Okay,
ladies
so
want to.
I am the delegate. I am the delegate from. Am I Miss Nicaragua?
You sure are. So the options we had was
Oh, I was going
no,
to
it's an
answer.
easy convo, or yes, I wish it could be more spoken about. But you're also welcome to share more.
Yeah.
When? Where I don't even want to do an accent because that would be like wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
Um, I don't. You see, with mental health, I've never had an experience in my family or in my circle where something was wrong and it was kind of like nothing wrong with you, or if something wrong, don't say that. So I would say no. I It wasn't taboo really. just Caribbean parents, you'd say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so frustrated." No, 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 I just need to say a prayers or something like that, that kind of vibe. But I think as I'm a late teens into my adulthood, the friends that I kept, we were always kind of cognizant of each other's like struggles and stuff like that. So it's always a safe space for me. More times out, yeah, yeah, 9 times out of 10, it was a safe space to say what's going on, or I didn't feel badly. The person that make me feel bad about my little triggers and thing is
It's
me.
you. Yeah,
Yeah,
most of us.
me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say like in my immediate family, it hasn't been a taboo topic. I would say at the community level, and when I mean community level, I'm talking about like the South Asian diaspora, so like Indians typically, and what I've seen, in like broader networks and within that community as well, that like mental health really was in a forefront of conversations and it almost was looked down upon, meaning like, older people will talk about like, what is this new thing kids talk about these days, anxiety? What do they mean by anxiety? But then like, it's so funny because I saw a meme the other day where Indian influencer that I follow was like, when parents say anxiety didn't exist in their childhood, or they don't even know why kids are ranting on about anxiety, and then it immediately snapshots to like the mom cleaning in a frenzy because there's people coming over for dinner, right? Or like saying like, why are you even moving that? Like, don't you know, like something like, it's like those kind of behaviors. But I would love for that to get better in the community. And I have seen it gotten better, but there's still a lot of like, oh my gosh, like um anxiety is not a thing, it's a made up thing. Or even when we think about depression, then even depression gets into a taboo topic of like when it comes to like matchmaking, that's very, big in our community as well as like, oh, this person has gone through depression. We don't know if he or she or they are stable, right? And therefore they're kind of like not worthy enough to even like engage with. So it's crazy, but I'm happy to say it's not within my immediate family, but it is something that's still in the community that I've seen.
I I was gonna say this person said, but the person is me, so I'll just read it. That mental health is generally acknowledged, but the conversations are still hard because the way we choose to protect our mental health or the way we choose to nourish our mental health isn't always accepted or respected. We get pressure from ourselves, older generations, or other persons. Um, and we feel that we can't be soft, that we can't appear weak or socially inferior or crazy for having moments of weakness or for needing to make drastic lifestyle changes to protect our mental health. Like someone might say, we say it casually, you have to take care of yourself and don't stress and don't this. But when we actually take the necessary actions to nourish our mental health and to protect our sacred spaces, sometimes people see us as, oh, what's wrong with you? Or, why you behaving so sensitive, or why this or why that, or or she's funny, or you move weird, or you're peculiar or something like that, for saying, well, no, this is what I choose to do so that I could feel better. And even though it's become easier to have the conversations, even with the conversations, we do have some cultural expectations to like
Yeah.
toughen up.
Yeah. What was the percentage that, sorry, Jizzy, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Tell the percentage first.
Oh yeah, I
That's
was
my
gonna say, what
favorite.
was the percentage of the people that answered that question? What did they think?
We had 28% of people saying no, it's an easy convo, and 72% saying
Yeah,
that yes, they wish it was spoken about more.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanted to add that makes sense though. The 70. It's not an easy it's not an easy conversation many times. But I wanted to say something specific about my family. Is that my grandmother worked in a mental health institution in Trinidad. She worked in St. Anne's for the Trinidadians, right? My aunt worked there as well. She worked as an occupational therapist. And we used to have like, we would have cleaners around the house who would come like weekly or so. And they were from there. And so I think it's because of that, that when things were hard on people or hard on anybody in the family, like it wasn't a kind of funny thing because my mom and my aunts and my uncles, not necessarily my uncles, my aunts and stuff, they grew up around understanding that mad people, quote unquote, mad people, they're going through things. And so my family was a little bit extra, sensitive with that kind of mental health issues and stuff like that. If it was moving kind of wonky, they would just be like, all right, and try to, figure it out or to work around it and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's all I wanted to say.
Okay,
Also,
so
they told my mother she was born in a madhouse.
what?
What? But I think like that,
Me,
right, even leads to conversations of people that do like get diagnosed with like schizophrenia, bipolarism, and so forth. Like even those kind of terms still having a very negative connotation to it. Like I know I've said it before, and now I look back at it, I'm like, what the heck? Where like if someone's acting a ways, I'm like, why are you acting bipolar, right? But like people with bipolarism still can function as they
Mhm.
want to, right? With the correct support. But like there's a tendency for us to be like, oh my gosh, they're bipolar, they're on schizophrenia, they're on the medication or any other diagnoses, they're on the medication that they need to help support them. And even that's getting looked at as like, you know, oh my gosh, this person is crazy. Like, how many times in movies have we seen a scene where a person goes into like they're dating somebody, they go into their medicine cabinet and they see a medication that they say is deemed for, you know, people that are not apparently unstable, and therefore they like write that person off too. So, like,
Yeah.
to your point, as you were saying, Giselle, like how people would try to diagnose and be like, something's wrong, but like then using those terms, but also understanding that like people can still function with the proper support instead of just kind of like being written off as well.
Yeah.
I just want to say, B just called me Giselle, and
Sorry.
I don't think I've ever heard that ever in my life.
My bad, Jizzy,
It
my
was like,
bad.
That's in trouble.
There we go.
ooh, I thought I
We're
was in
back.
trouble.
We're back.
Right. Okay, so the next question is, do you consider the mental health of others in romantic, family, professional relationships, and friendships? And 100% of our participants said absolutely. And mm, I almost don't believe them. I'm
I
sorry.
was gonna say the same. Like, I love y'all listeners, but I feel like
I feel like I don't
really we
believe y'all. Y'all would
I
lie.
would believe that. I would believe them if those 100% were all gal.
Can I tell
Because,
you?
because, I don't know, just based on experience.
Okay,
Anyway.
so plenty girl, but not all.
but not all.
Okay, but that's nice though. I think honestly, if I'm being fair,
Maybe we try.
people want to and they try, but sometimes the emotions get away from you. Your emotions get away from you, and what you do affects the other person, and you can't really control that. But I don't think people intentionally know that it's gonna fuck somebody else up in their mental and do it still.
I
Not
think
everybody.
people
They have
don't
some
care
bad people
though.
out there.
I think some people don't care. I think right now we're in this space where people are all about doing me and putting me first and
Self
prioritizing
care.
me and self-care and even saying mental health and using that as a reason to, not be empathetic and sympathetic. Um and just show kindness to people. And we do it to when we're in relationships because we're like, oh, da, 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 da. I had to do for me. Da, da, da. I don't think we always think about other people's mental health. Absolutely not.
I mean, I felt that was a really good question because I also feel like that question could have been interpreted so many different ways. And so, same idea of like, I think even in my marriage phase, I'm still, there's times where I'm like, forget that. I'm doing my own thing. I
Fuck
don't
you.
care
I'm
how
doing me.
Derek's feeling right now. And not that I'm saying it's right, but I'm just being real here. And it's like, I do think, I don't necessarily think it's as black and white as like, yes, I've considered their feelings. I think it's more of like I've considered their feelings, but do I have enough on my plate to take on my own as well? And that's where, as you said, Jans, to lead with that empathy side of like being real with yourself, but also being real with them, but and also understanding that mental health, I believe is a moving piece always. I don't necessarily think there's going to be an ever, at least for me, where I'll be like, I am 100% completely happy. I've gone through all my problems. I've resolved it, and yay me, and give me a cookie now. Thank you, please, and much, you know? So
I'm gonna give you a cookie still.
That's the
exactly. So
thing.
like, and that's just what it is. But as I said, I'm also going to be like, there are days where I'm just like, it is just me, myself, and I. I'm not married. What are you talking about? You know? So, uh, yeah, I think so I would say like no would have been my answer to that question
Yeah.
because if I had to be honest.
I honestly think in families, these Caribbean parents do not ever think about the mental health, not the well-being, and that's totally different.
They
Yeah.
care
The
about the well-being.
mental, yeah, the
Yeah.
well-being they do. That's 100% given. That's there. They don't care. They don't think about. I shouldn't say don't care. They don't think about the mental health of their children,
I think they
regardless if they're
underestimate.
small or if they're big. Especially when they're big,
Yeah.
they don't.
Yeah.
And can't say for. I'm not saying this for Americans or the Caribbean parents. I don't think that they take it into consideration because you're just supposed to be okay. A big person is supposed to go through it. I went through it. You could go through it. I'm okay. When I'm not okay, you have to drop everything. You know that kind of vibe, and
Yeah.
they don't see like, hey. But also, I know it's not malicious. Like, I don't care about this bitch, so let me just go and drop everything on her. I don't think it's malicious. It's just that it's not. There's no self awareness in that. There's little self awareness in that
Yeah.
area
It
of
it
our lives.
it's kind of like they don't know what they don't know, right? If they
Yeah,
had that in their upbringing, they have previous to that, they had that. So like they're just doing so with what they can and what they know versus like, I think like as we are start becoming more aware, like hopefully we start changing that narrative. But that's I think that's just as you said, a lot of like it's not malicious, it's just like that's just what they know.
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't
Yeah.
think a lot of employers think about it until they experience something like that as well. Um,
Yeah.
in terms of women when they go on maternity leave, or even men when they have paternity leave, or when their partner or their spouse just had a baby, and it's like, yeah, you had to get back to work, but also I have a little one at home, but the work have to be done, but I have a little one at home, and there's just like you have to get back to the work until somebody passes away, and then you all have this moment of, yeah, that is
Yeah.
a moment of silence to realize, okay, we have to take care of ourselves. We have to do the things that we need to for ourselves and our families and stuff like that. I just think that people just aren't aware and don't put a lot of effort into thinking about the mental health of others before they even act or say. And I myself included, because I know them kids in my class, they be going through.
Yeah.
And sometimes, well, sometimes,
Yeah.
many times, 9 out of 10 times, I'm just like,
Yeah. That's crazy.
the
But
answer is no. Yeah. It's a no for me. I don't always consider it. But if it was a man, of course I would consider it. 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 And I'll consider it 3, 4 times. I'll consider it with my friends. I'll consider it with my sister. I'll be a real consider it until you do me dirty. And then, anyway, sorry. I go.
Rabbit
question
hole.
for all of you though. So like for both of you. So when we're thinking about this, do you ever feel, because as we just admitted, right, we don't always consider it. So do you ever feel any type of like, maybe this is my own anxiety thing, but when I don't consider it and I reflect on it, I feel an immense amount of like guilt where I'm just like, oh gosh, I should have. But then like that in itself is then also for me is anxiety inducing as too. Like, did I
Yeah.
do wrong? Did I, you know what I mean? Versus like just accepting that like
Yeah.
that's just what it is. You did not have the capacity to consider at that moment, and that's also okay. And trying to remove the guilt from it, I guess.
Yeah, I understand. So you feel like, did I not show up correctly or
Hmm.
adequately? Like, was I a bad friend?
Yeah. When it really truly is that you were just unable to show up,
Yeah.
right?
As a resident overthinker, I tend to go through all of those things that you usually go through after before. Because I would like something might happen and I might have a thought. And then after I have my own venting thought, I'm like, but what if this person is going through this right now? I can't be this selfish. How could I be so selfish? And a vicious overthinking cycle would happen with me. So I guess to the guilt and regret and everything, just from the get go,
Yeah.
from the onset of a selfish thought or a negative thought, I'm just like, oh, I'm not being a good friend. Maybe I should consider da, 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 da. Again, considering somebody's feelings beyond above my own first.
Yeah.
I was also thinking about this question in a different way, in that yes, I guess the nice answer would be to say that you always consider the mental health of other people you're in relationship with, but the honest answer would be that you do not always need to consider the mental health depend because you have to take a couple things into consideration: the nature of the relationship, where you are in relationship with that person, what sort of relationship you're in with that person. Maybe what's necessary right now is for you to prioritize your mental health over the other person's based on maybe a cycle that's been repeating in that relationship, and you realize, okay, maybe I don't need to consider this person at that time, I need to consider me. you know um Sometimes I think even that kind of perspective would dictate, but everybody would just say absolutely all your life.
No, and we're sorry for
The
not
intent is
considering that
there.
triggered you.
The intent is good. The intent is good.
Okay, next question.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Can you identify, or are you aware of the people, conversations, situations, or environments that impact your mental health in both positive and negative ways? So maybe we can, yeah, talk about the two. What conversations, situations, environments have positive impacts, and which ones have negative impacts?
For me at least, it took me a long time to get to that. And reason why is that that required me to be really honest with myself and the relationships that I have, which also meant I had to ask myself, is this relationship working for me? And what I mean by relationships, I don't mean boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife. I'm talking about friendships. I'm
Mhm.
talking about relationships that I have with family members, right? Where I was kind of, um, found myself where I felt like I was doing a lot, but then I was also just justifying it by saying like, oh, well, that's just how I am, right? Like my my way of showing my way of affection or language of love is to show it in actions, right? Um, and sometimes in actions where not necessarily I didn't feel comfortable, but it was like I had put too much on myself to do. But because I'm Bahar and I'm like, oh, I could do this. I got it done, done, and done. And I just had to really look at myself of like, well, I know, like there's certain times where I was like, I know how I show up for people. Are those people showing up in the same way? And I used to for a long time make an excuse like, oh, that's just how that person is, yada, yada, and so forth. And then when I really started hanging around with certain people, spending more time, I was just like, yo, every time I come back, I have a lot of anxiety, right? Or like when I'm in this scenario, I have a lot of anxiety. And so like I had to look at like what is causing that anxiety? Is it self-inducing or is it that like it's okay that if I'm in this room with this person and even though we've been friends for a really long time, that like we're just not meshing anymore. And it's not necessarily of like, hey, I need to completely cut you off, but it's also now going to be more protective of I'm going to protect my space a little bit and maybe not always say yes to an outing, right? Or not always go above and beyond. Um, because I started seeing that hindering me as a person specifically, like personality wise. I was just like, not looking forward to things, not being responsive, like in the messaging and so forth, where I just need to be like, either I need to suck it up and just be honest about this and come from this understanding that, like, this is, you're in a different path of life and it's okay that this person is not. And I shouldn't feel any guilt about it. And I should not have to feel that to compensate for that difference in paths that I need to continue to do something that I don't want to do.
Mm,
So it took a long time. And it's still something that I'm working with. Like I've like really setting boundaries and being like, this is affecting my energy. I'm not going, right? Before when I used to do that, I was used to be worried about like, oh, was as same idea as you said, Giselle, Giselle, like of you see, I cut myself and and it's say Giselle, so Jizzy. So like same thing of like overthinking, like, oh man, if I don't do this or if I don't go to this event, they're gonna think I'm not supporting them or I'm not, you know? And so like then coming to the understanding like it's okay for people to have differing opinions, differing thoughts, different paths, and just be like, I'm gonna support from the background or this just isn't me and that's okay. And I need to just separate from that too, which is
yeah,
crazy because then of course grief comes in that like breakage of friendship as well, but that's for a different time and day. So yeah, I would say I do, but it's a lot. It's still something that like I need to figure out how to make it a little bit simpler for myself, but it is something that I only started doing, to be honest, late in my adulthood. Not it wasn't prior to like my late 30s, I would say.
mm, yeah. I think for me, I pay attention to how I feel physically when I'm around particular people or when I'm doing certain things. And when I'm happy or when I feel safe or when I'm having fun, I feel like my skin is tingling a little bit or like
Yeah.
my heart feels tingly and I feel at ease. And then there's certain times when I can feel my heart beating a little bit faster or I feel like maybe I'm not flowing in conversation. I'm maybe thinking about what I say before I say it or just being cautious when I'm otherwise generally free and um you know slightly dirty in the mouth.
Yeah.
If I'm not just being myself, then I know, okay, something wrong here. This is not where I'm supposed to be. These are not my people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took a while to think about like the different things for me because I mean everybody goes through a hard time. I went through a hard time. I've gone through hard times. Um, when I carry a lot of my stress in my chest, and as an asthmatic, that is terrible for one. But I carry a lot of stress here and here. So if my throat or my chest is feeling blocked and a continuous, that is like I know something is wrong. What I realized a few years ago that sitting on the beach just watching water actually calms me down. It saves me from making rash actions or rash decisions, which I tend to do if I'm in a space and I'm just like, fuck everybody, fuck everything. And yeah, so that, but also within the last few years, actually, all my life, my house or my room has been my epicenter, positive or negative, whatever is going on in my life. Once I am comfortable in my space, there is where I go to kind of like get away from everything. So the negative is something's going on and I ain't talking to none of y'all bitches. I ain't saying shit. I'm just in there for days at a time and then I'll pop back out like nothing even happened. And when I'm happy too, I'll be in there, but I'll be talking to y'all bitches and I'll be saying things, but I'm also very comfortable in my house. So home, wherever it is, home is where I am. Home is what kind of brings me back into balance from good stuff, not good stuff, just home and then people. Like y'all know that y'all are like my family. My family gives me anxiety sometimes. Y'all don't give me anxiety like that at all. I have my friends at home that don't give me anxiety at all either. There's a very common presence. If it is I don't want to be around y'all, is because I am too much innocent to want to bring it out. Sometimes I just want to cry, and that happens too. So, but you see, home, and so home is y'all. Home is some of my family. Home is where I am. People that I feel totally comfortable with. So that's me. And once I could talk shit and I could laugh, then I know that I'll be alright. If I can't muster it, then it's a terrible thing. So,
Yeah.
but I've been talking shit consistently for the last many months, so I think I'm good right now.
There's a thing like I always said, and it sounds cheesy, but like I've always said that it's always the people that understand me when I'm quiet. And so what I mean by that is that I think y'all have figured this out too. I'm not very open and being like my everyday feels, right? So like Jizzy, as you were saying, like I tend to go on the quiet side. Like even here now, one of the biggest complaints that like one of my best friends has is she's like, you don't say anything until we ask you, right? And then even then you don't say anything, you say I'm okay. Like don't worry about it. And so it's like even with us, right, in our own group chat, like when we know someone's been quiet for a while, or we know not to like poke, like no, everyone knows at this point, like don't poke Bahar, but just check in on her, right? And so there's those people that they know like Bahar's quiet, let's just check in on her. And then there's those people that are like, Bahar's quiet, we have nothing to worry about kind of scenario, right? Or she's okay. And that is obviously part a lot on me because I don't portray that like something's wrong. But like as I said, home is same kind of like the home idea that home is for me is like where people can understand me even when I'm quiet, that understand that like we can't push her to talk because then she's just gonna not talk at all. We're just gonna be like, just checking in on you, right? So like a couple of times y'all know that Vegas trip I had was a lot of anxiety for me. I specifically reached out and said, it's high anxiety, guys, just FYI, and didn't want to share anymore. And the three of you, like Jizzy, Jans, and Ro, like checked in on me, like with their own message, like just checking in to say hi, right? And I knew it wasn't a hi, it was more like, I'm just checking in to make sure you're okay, you know? And so like those are
Yeah.
like, yeah, things are home to me. And in regards to like that whole happy place, I think, as you said, water, Grenada has been my place for that. I was just telling Jans
Is
before we
that right?
I was just telling Jans before we started
Oh,
recording.
Susan.
I was telling Jans before we started recording that one of my own friends that lives here in LA literally told me was like, your Grenada family are your people. Like I've grown up with you. She's like, but your Grenada family is your people. She's like, they've seen like a different type of like light even show up on my face. Daryl has said that to me before. He's like, I see a little bit of a difference of you like when you're in Grenada and when you're in Cali. Like Grenada is your place. Grenada is your people. So it's like, and again, as I said, I found these things very late in adulthood. And I get sometimes really sad about that. And then Smugs reminded me when in this conversation too that she's like, B, I think about that all the time too. She's like, but right time for the right people in the right place. So I appreciate y'all,
Oh.
We
all my
appreciate it. So you're
people.
looking for land or something. You want us to look for land for you or something.
That's always the goal, huh?
Just tell me, I have 2 bedrooms.
So 100% of the folks said that yes, they can identify those situations that, affect their mental health positively and negatively. So good for you. It's good to be aware, and not just to be aware, but to also do what we need to do to have more of the good and less of the bad, when it can be avoided, because certain situations that stress us can't be avoided, but at least we can anticipate how we will feel and do what we need to do to make sure that we have the resources we need. Maybe it's a good friend who could be with us, or a conversation, or just plan a little like a decompression session for after. You're not going to be in a high stress situation and you plan a beach date for the next day. So at least okay, I just have to make it through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next one, what are ways you prioritize that word? It's not.
It's the pro. It's the pro.
It is. What are ways that you make most important? I'm trying to not use it.
Not the thesaurus.
What are ways you prioritize your own mental health? So you want to hear
Copy.
responses before you share or after? Pause.
Before.
Oh yeah,
No, before.
let's see. Let's see what our listeners say.
The
Okay.
one time be on time, that's when you would go.
I touch my nose, people. I touch my nose first.
Touch your nose first.
Wait, who's going first? The
The
folks.
listeners,
The
yes.
folks, yeah, the
Because
folks.
they couldn't touch their nose, technically. Boom, boom. Okay, I'm gonna stop with the dad joke. Here we go. Let's
No, I
go.
love them.
Okay.
It's
It
a
said,
good
this
move.
person said, they don't answer messages or calls until they're able to be their regular self again. So, like, they set a boundary.
I like that.
And then this
Remember,
person
I stick a pin on that particular answer because I don't talk to that person. Hey, go ahead.
said,
I said stick a pin on that one, the very first answer. I just said because I want to talk to that person.
okay. So we circling back.
This will come back.
Next, by no longer explaining myself and ending the situations that don't serve me and choosing me. So again,
Okay,
more
I like
boundaries.
that.
you go, girl, boy.
And this person said therapy, reading up on issues to raise my awareness, journaling, and being in nature. I love that.
Was that you?
No, it wasn't. It sounded like me?
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Okay.
Next, mental self check-ins, going for walks in nature, pedicures, reading, dancing to music, and boundaries. They said dancing to music.
Because dancing without music can
I like
Hey, I
dancing
dance
to
without
music.
music.
Hey, I will make my own song,
you're making your own song. That's music, boo.
karaoke box.
That's fine. I also
I
dance without
dance when
music
I'm
all the
warming
time.
up food. I dance when I'm staring at the microwave while my food warms up. I
I
guess a
like
microwave
Dance
is
with food,
sound.
so you're dancing to food.
Yeah,
dancing to
there
food.
you
I
go.
dance when I eating chicken, so
Hmm.
I really
I
can't
dance
judge.
when I eat anything that I like eating.
Same.
Food makes me
Mm.
happy.
There's a joke in there
Yeah,
somewhere.
same. That's why I started laughing. Sorry, continue, Jens.
Where's Daryl? I need him.
Okay. Every time I see
Hmm.
it. Prioritizing fitness, regular apps or
Nice, Sabrina.
appointments with my therapist, journaling. Yeah, journaling.
That was
Sorry.
you?
No, it was not me. Well, you think I journal?
Yeah.
I mean,
I have a
I
bullet point
do.
journal. Okay.
I not a bullet point journal,
This was not it.
a bullet journal.
What's
I
a
do.
bullet? Okay, we'll come back to that. But anyways,
It's a dotted notebook.
It don't have lines, it had dots.
It has dots instead of lines, like
Called a
a
bullet point journal.
got it.
yeah. So the crazy people that would draw out their calendar and write in the to-do list and make all the squigglies.
Yes, it's for that.
Yeah.
And she's
Oh,
one of them.
okay. There was a joke in the bullet journal, but I'll refrain.
Sorry.
Continue.
I apologize.
I feel like I'm not picking up on all the jokes, but I can assume it's dirtiness.
I mean, it's us. The
And
assumption is correct.
so okay, so
Yeah.
imagination set free. Oh, this person said by setting strong boundaries, it can be challenging as this can upset others. And that goes back to, what I was saying in the beginning. Yes, people say mental health, but when you do what you need to do, they're like, oh,
Selfish health,
Yeah.
selfish health.
mm-hmm.
It's even funnier when you do what you need to do by recommendation of the person, and that person is also getting a boundary. And they're like, what?
I thought I was on the inside. Okay, next one. Having boundaries and knowing when to tap out when overwhelmed. That's good. And this person said, herbally.
Hey, do you, boo?
And that
Listen,
makes
tea is good for you. Tea is
it
good for
is.
you.
And the last one says taking time to unwind and engage in some of my hobbies.
Hmm,
Okay, hobbies. Yeah, I agree with that one too. I like that.
I like all of them.
Yeah.
There's some
Okay,
good ones.
so now it's your turn. If you would like to answer, do we need to still?
I'll answer Giselle. Giselle wanted to go last, everybody, just FYI. Um,
Yeah.
oh, this is a good one. I have a long answer for it, but I'll try to shorten it a little bit. So when it came, so, okay, it's like you know how we always everyone thinks like, okay, prioritize your mental health, and there's like I want to just say like the storybook version of like do yoga, do traveling, do like like do journaling, do reading, do all like things that like you think are like, oh, if I try it, I will do it. And I will tell you, I've tried a lot of things and I'm like, this is not working for me. And like, so that's why I really like some of the answers where people were like, just kind of getting back in tune with myself. So for me, and I also think this is also something that changes, like what worked for me 1 year is not going to work for me like another year. So for me right now, mine has definitely been like when especially when my anxiety is high, it happens more often than not. Running has been my thing. I used to hate running, but I found that running has been really helpful in helping me clear my mind. It doesn't make the problems go away, but it gives me a moment of just like clearing my mind, being a little bit reflective on like what is the direction I need to take if it is something that's surrounding like a big decision. Lately, I've been having a lot of anxiety regards to my like fertility journey. I've just talked with you guys about before, my own health with like the, diabetes diagnosis as well. So it's just kind of like where does that all fit in? Then along with like tying back to like my body image and how does that, tie into everything else too. So like for me, it's really been like how can I bring in forms of fitness to help with that? So it's been running, it's been kind of keeping on schedule with my workouts that Mario sends me. But then what I also introduced to that is that once a week I now do sessions with Malika from Spice Harmony Yoga.
Yay!
Virtual every Thursday morning at 6 a.m. my time. And it's more like a yoga therapy session. So it's not the traditional like
That's late for us, Jiz.
Six, but it's still six her time. That's nighttime too.
no, 6 a.m.
That's what I said.
So yeah, 9 a.m. your time, basically. Yeah.
No, it's still. I'm Ayana. Anyway,
Well,
we'll talk about
well,
it after.
well, you don't know.
Giselle.
6 o'clock is early.
For me, no, it's not. I'm a morning person. So
Oh,
but yeah, so like, and it's been really helpful to like, because the way she has started off too, it's like, as I said, it wasn't necessarily like in your traditional yoga class that you would go. Like if I were to go to a class here in the States, it would just be like the general, yoga things that they teach you, which is also not a problem. But like in my sessions with Malika, it's been like, let's start out with like how things have been going. And I've noticed that because of my sessions, there's some habits that I've changed. So for those of you that don't know, I'm definitely a complete workaholic. I used to be that person that like once I woke up, I was like, let me check my emails on my phone, I'll be walking around the house, going to get tea, make breakfast, and started doing that. And my behavior changed where like I've made a point of like not touching my phone for the first 30 minutes that I'm awake, right? It was really hard, right? Or like same thing like being in bed with my husband when we wake up in the morning of like not just turning over and touching my
Yeah, you
phone.
heard it too. She said
Right,
her
yeah.
husband.
Anyway, guys, it's been a year. You got to get used to that
It's so
term
We
stupid.
don't
now.
care. We
We're
don't
still
care.
getting used to it.
But like that idea of like not turning over and just reaching for my phone, which, we actually both would do because like we're like, oh, let's catch up on the messages. So it's like all this idea of like even that urgency culture coming to place of like, I need to check my email. I need to be responsive. I need to see who texts me. I need to see who called. Typically, people that have texted me is because they've been on a different time zone. So like learning those things with my practice with Malika, we've been now, it's like my fourth month going into it, and like has helped me mentally, has helped me be more productive in my day to day, right? Like still focusing on work that I need to do, and I still trying to function around that piece of like being a perfectionist and saying like this is okay, but then like also that idea of like that fertility journey that I'm going to be going on of like being okay of the things that are going to come, but then also knowing that like I'm doing the best that I can for myself, and the rest, like, I'm not going to say like inaction is going to lead to things, but like knowing that I'm doing the best that I can do for myself mentally and
Mhm.
physically is just bringing me more confidence, knowing that like, okay, whatever comes of this fertility journey, if it does end up in a this sounds funny, a production of a child, or if it doesn't, that I at least knew that I still put my own mental and, you know, physical health at the forefront to kind of prepare for that journey at the same time. So that has been actually, to be honest, pretty life-changing for me. And it's something that like I don't care if I'm out late on a Wednesday night. That happens sometimes, or we've gone somewhere, or like I know I'm not canceling that session that I had with Malika because that's been super important. And then same idea of like just setting up those boundaries. So that the person that said like, not taking calls or text messages. Again, I used to be that person, and people used to say that like, oh, call B because she gonna pick up right away. We know she will. Or text B, we know she's gonna respond real quick. Where I'm like, it's okay. I'm not gonna respond for a few hours, or I'm not gonna call. Or I also put some people on mute that I know that they're not my day-to-day interactions. Unless you're my mom, my dad, my husband, you might be on mute in my messages. You
Not
Uh,
hugely. Not you.
you might be on mute, no offense, because like then it removes that anxiety for me of like, okay, I don't need to respond right away. So like same idea. Then those boundaries of like, now that I am creating these boundaries, people are like, what? And I'm like, well, yeah, if you love me, you're gonna understand. And if you don't understand, that's also okay too, but I'm still doing this right here, right now, type of scenario.
Yeah.
So
And it's
that
for the
was my
people in your life to recognize that you're at a particular phase in your life, and to support the goals that you have for yourself. I think also respecting other people's mental health also comes with respecting where they are, because depending on the stage that they're at in their life, they would need to make certain changes so that they could meet their personal goals. And based on, the goals that you've set for yourself, and the fact that you have a husband,
yeah.
we can't just be calling your ass any hour tonight too.
Well, I mean, how many times I've said it before, I know I've said it, or have you even heard, marriage or not, whether in a relationship, there's always a comment that gets thrown like, oh, ever since you got in a relationship, this has changed. And I'm like, well, I hope things have
Yes,
changed.
of
Like,
course.
I hope something has changed. I hope it's very obvious that I'm trying to pour into my relationship and not trying to please you, like at the same, you know what I mean? So, like, I used to think that was such a funny statement that was so overused before. And I'm just like, well, thank you for acknowledging that I am pouring into my relationship. And seems like you're not comfortable with that. And I'm okay that you're not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Oh,
it me?
question,
Is it
sorry.
me, Jesus? Oh, prioritizing mental health. Well, I've been through things, like I said before. Honestly, before time, I used to drink that shit away or drink it down, go for drinks and stuff. And while I still do that now, sometimes the drinking is not to get drunk so that I can forget it. The drinking is because I like to have fun with my friends. And even if it's one drink, the camaraderie and the just the, the getting away from everything that's heavy is always already a good thing. So like a lot of us would know, like if I'm saying, yeah, I'm not in a good space. The question usually is, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to go get drinks and just sit and chill? And that for me is prioritizing my mental health. Because when I'm in the company of people who I love, regardless of if I am drinking alcohol, if I'm not, I could be drinking water. It helps me to just get rid of whatever it is in the moment. What I definitely do outside of that is I go. Like I tell you, home is my base. I go home, I will watch TV. I will have herbal tea, even though I don't like hot beverages. I will have herbal tea. I will dance to music. I will put my head in, and from that moment, my headphones go in. I am perfectly fine. I'm perfectly fine. Music and TV and just things that I like. Because coincidentally, you know that I do a little bit of each outside of work and stuff like that. Outside of the podcast, I would be a little bit in entertainment and stuff like that. And I just put that together. But those things that I do, I like to be involved when I'm feeling down. So it's definitely not myself more into work. It would just be like chilling. I would sing. I'm very sure my neighbors hear me. I think I'm freaking Celine Dion when I'm going through shit because I be singing loud. I be singing the best ballads in the worst way. I be watching TV. The TV would be loud. I would be laughing loud. I will watch Black Panther. I will say hello Mbaku every time he comes on the screen. Anything that makes me happy, I will do. And then a lot of that has to do with being at home or being with my friends. Before time, I used to like talk to a lot of people on the phone all the time, like FaceTime with my friends, Ayana, Rohan, my friend in Texas. Anyway, and I realized that that wasn't necessarily helping. It was helping, yes, but it was also creating a dependence on people whereby if they weren't available, what the fuck do I do? So I had to also kind of create a boundary there. Not that I did not want to be speaking to my friends all the time. I had to create that boundary and be like, I have to spend this time with myself because at the end of the day, if they are doing something else and I can't get on to them, I can't spiral out even more. I have to be able to censor myself as well. So it became a lot of just me, me, because people have shit going on as well. But I also wanted to point out that y'all would realize by now Rue isn't here tonight. And I think just by this question, Rue prioritized her own mental health because it was heavy for her to have to talk about it on here. So it's an example, I guess, of prioritizing. And I mean, she didn't, it's not like she was like, I ain't coming. She was like, guys, I can't make it. And we were like, it's okay. We love you. You can still be
It was like,
there.
what? Was that the real voice? You did sound like her.
I did? Oh, man.
Try it again?
I forgot what I said.
Yeah, you said it like her. Good try.
Yeah. Thank you. In a moment. Yeah. So, real quick, big up, Ro. We love you.
You,
And
we love you.
thank you for being a perfect example of how to, understand where you're at in your fields and wherever you're at right now and not be able to make it because sometimes you're just not able to show up. But once you're showing up for yourself, that's important. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Ayana, what you just do?
What do I do? I would how do I prioritize my mental health?
You drink
Um,
tea too?
I drink
You
herbal
drink
tea.
tea?
I do. I do. Lots of tea. And I do things that would help me release happy hormones. Um, Exercise, etc. Um, Um,
Wow.
and yeah, what else? I'm honest with myself about how I feel in a situation. If I notice that in a situation I don't feel comfortable, or I'm not happy, or I feel sad, or I feel just a general heaviness, I would just first be honest with myself. And if I'm with someone that I can be honest with, I'll be honest with them also about how I feel. And if it, whatever the situation is, if I can remove myself from it, or I just talk myself through it, or if it's a situation that could become, you know, one of those highly emotional, I call a friend. And sometimes all we need is a sounding board, and sometimes I need a sounding board in high stress situations. So I would just call a sister. And sometimes I'm not calling because I need advice. Sometimes I'm calling because sometimes you just need to talk through your own thoughts. Um, I am one of those people that sometimes kind of just goes quiet, but generally I would resurface and be like, yo, XYZ, this is what's happening. Boom. Um, but yeah, herbal tea has been, really good at helping me. I would say that Malika also has been significant um as a friend, not as a therapist. She's a very, very, very good friend. So Malika, big up you.
Make up
Um,
you.
Part of my journey coming out of COVID, when I started seeing a therapist, what they had when I worked for my therapist, he had recommended that I pick particular activities that I wanted to do with myself. And I started to lean into that more, and it kind of helped me test out how I felt in certain situations, feel that sense of, I don't know, just something about setting an activity or a goal that's just for you, with you, you're the only one accountable. Something about that, just kind of creating that little space where it's just you and your thoughts, whatever it is. Be it sounded like that was, your exercise journey, just like setting that personal goal. It really helps. I don't know the science behind it, but just having something that you are accountable to you, there are no external factors, that you could just say, this moment is just for me. Um, that has really helped. And again, yeah, just being honest and not feeling it to show up in a way that was not authentic. If I really was not feeling good, then just say it. If it was a bad day, just say it, and keep that same energy throughout. Um, yeah.
I was gonna
Um,
add that I realized for a long time, and this I had, I didn't necessarily have trouble saying no to things. I Daryl will disagree with me on that, but um, I used to have trouble kind of saying, feeling that I had to explain why, right? Versus like I could just be like, because I just don't want to, or instead, like a really good example of that is like if you don't want to go to something, because as we said, maybe we don't have the energy for it. Maybe this is a week that my anxiety's gone like through the roof, and I just need to kind of recalibrate for a second, like, and just be like, I'm not going to be able to come to your birthday party, right? And I was always kind of looking for an answer of like, well, the only reason I can say no is because I have something else going on. And so that obviously is not helpful versus like now I do feel more comfortable saying like I'm saying no because I just that's just what it is. I
Yeah.
just don't want to, right? It's always a question of like no, but why not? And then you're like, because I don't want to. And then you feel like, and I think that's where sometimes guilt used to come in for me of like, okay, well, actually I don't have anything in my schedule, so I should go. But it's like it's not necessarily that clear cut. So
I wanted to say also one of the ways that I help myself cope is also by not trying to help myself cope, not trying to fix the situation. If I'm sad, if it's a day when I'm feeling anxious, maybe it was a socially anxious situation or just a high stress time in my life, or maybe it's a very happy time because sometimes we feel like we need to self-regulate when we're too happy. This kind of feeling like if things are too good, it's gonna fall apart and we want to like bring ourselves down, or we're really really low and we feel like we need to bring ourselves up. This constant need to just maintain this like steady just monotone buzz through life, and that's not how we're meant to live. You're supposed to experience the highs and the lows of life. So I think one of the ways that I think I help my mental health is by just allowing myself to fall apart when I need to and just be sad and cry it out, and also to allow myself to be extremely happy in extremely happy moments. And then there are those days that are just baseline boring ass days, and I don't need to do anything to shake it up or make it anything, just like let it be one of those days. So also just like letting yourself be, and not feeling like you need to
Yeah,
a
mix
different
it up.
mental. Yeah. Sorry,
Busy?
Jill, your hand is up.
No, it's okay. Now, say sorry. I wanted to circle back to that person. I say the cut off communication and stuff like that. That's something that I do as well. Not that I cut it off. I just don't bother to read messages until like I'm in that space. So I throw my phone. Kind of like when I'm a text man and say something like nice, and then I throw my phone. When I'm in that space, I throw my phone. Make sure it's on silent, and I check it when I'm like looking at the time. I might have things to prepare, but also, and this weighs heavy on my heart, and so I'm going to say it. And Ayana's going to be like, Giselle, and B's going to be like, what are y'all talking about? And then we're going to talk about it after. But you see, that thing about being aware of the mental health of other people, when somebody is not messaging because of any folly or anything like that. So, it's, for example, if Ayana is going through something and I know she's going through something and I'm saying, hey, just checking in, it would be really nice, even with all the boundaries and everything, that the message is acknowledged. You don't have to say what you're going through. You understand? I'm saying, like, you don't have to say what you're going through. But there's somebody that cares about you, that is actually not pushing, not being intrusive, just, not small talk either. Kind of like B said, even though everybody was like, hey, you good? Da da da, how are you? Blah blah. She knew that it was a check in message. Acknowledge those people, at least. Just be like, have a word, pineapples or something that says, I'm not good, but I'm good, or something, because as a person who genuinely cares about my friends and I know that they're not okay, if I don't hear from you in 5, 6 days, I'm going to assume you're dead. And that's not gonna it's not gonna be okay with me in my spirit. I will worry, right? So I understand the boundaries thing. I do it myself. I will watch the phone ring sometimes, depending on who it is. However, I will get back to it and be like, hey, this, that,
Mm.
da, 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 da. So I just want to like people to put that into perspective. Not for everybody, not for every Tom, Dick, and Harry, not for every something, something, and Sheila. Just the people who are actively checking on you because they are interested in your well-being and very concerned about what it is you're going through, without being too intrusive. If you know that that's what it is, just acknowledge it. Just be like, two
Hopefully the
thumbs up.
hasn't gone down so deep a rabbit hole that we can, because sometimes maybe that's what it is too. We check in on others, or others check in on us, and we gone so deep down,
Yeah.
so
For
deep
five,
down.
6 days is a long time. I will assume that you have died. I will. I will.
Think
Hey, B, I'll tell you about that later.
all of us have had those days of, I mean, I agree with what Giselle says, and I also leave a little room for, people who are dealing with whatever it is that you're dealing with. It affects us in different ways, and maybe the awareness that we need a little bit more support and help than we realize isn't always there. Maybe we're not always recognized when we're dealing with things like depression and all of those things. And so I
Yeah.
guess sometimes, and maybe I think the thing is one of the ways we need to prioritize our mental health is recognizing when we need help and not being afraid to accept help when it's offered and when people are reaching out and are genuinely concerned. But it is so hard to
Yeah.
sometimes that dark place when we get into the dark place.
Yeah. I
And if
think,
you've ever been in the dark place, you know what I mean.
yeah. I think yeah, Dizzy, I'd completely hear you on that. But I same thing with the lungs of yeah, it's like sometimes like I have been in scenarios where um, people that I've reached out to were in a very, very dark place and they ended up explaining that to me later because then I naturally went into my overthinking of like, oh my God, this person's not responding. Are they pissed at me? Are they this at me? Like, like that is my initial thing. And then,
Yeah.
finally, once they were able to get out of whatever funk they were, they're like, hey, I was just in a weird space. I wasn't responding to everybody, even though like their red receipts, were showing up too. So it's like it took me a little bit, and it's something that I'm still working through, like understanding that this person's not going to respond, and I'm going to be that nagging person that like even if you're not responding, I'm going to send another the same exact message, 3 days later, 4 days later, just to continuing to check
B is me.
in.
Because for me is consistency. Even if
Yeah.
you're not responding, I am there
Yeah.
and everything like that. And I mean, just 24 hours, 72 hours, 5, 6 days, I am going to assume that you are dead. That's all. Sorry.
I was gonna
This is
add
this
on
is the thing.
the side of like that, considering other people's emotions. I will say that for the people that I do confide into, like when I'm getting ready to do, which I would consider like a heavy download of information on you, I've started asking, I want to be more consistent with it, but I've started asking the person, like, do you have the bandwidth to
I love that.
take what I'm going to talk about today, right? Because like I think it's very hard, especially sometimes via text message. I love talking on the phone when it's more like information that I want to talk through, versus texting. And so it's sometimes hard to know, right? Did that person have a bad day
It
today
is a
and they just haven't shared it yet, right? They're just like, we're catching up on other stuff, but they didn't share like, I had a shitty ass fucking day today. So I want to get more consistent with it, but it's something that I've started doing. It's been over a couple of years now where I've started been like, do you have the bandwidth to hear my shit today? You know? Um, so yeah, just a tip if anybody has that with their
Now
friends.
I actually not that I learned about it, but I started well, that's a different thing. But I started to be more cognizant of other people's bandwidth through Rohan actually, because again, when I was going through one of those things, and I was like, "You have a minute," and she was like, "I actually don't. I don't think I have time," and I wasn't mad about it. What I ended up doing is, do I put too much on people? Oh my god, Giselle again. So it wasn't. I wasn't even upset with her. I understood, but then there was a portion of time where I'm like, this is plenty for anybody. So I'm not going to drop my shit on anybody anymore. I'm just going to absorb that shit for myself because I'm like one of those overthinkers and I think it's me. It's me, it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me. But I also like, I do ask if you have a minute or if I start and then I realize also, please excuse whatever vehicle is passing very loudly. It's like an ambulance or a fire truck. Anyway, um, if I start to offload, I will definitely say yes. Sorry about that. It was a kind of day. Like 7, 8, 9, 8 out of 10 times, people are gonna be like, "Girl, it's alright, it's cool." But if I really need to do it, I will ask. You have a minute, tell you about my shitty ass day. If they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. I would, I will talk to myself until there's somebody who's actually, because most times I just need feedback or just somebody to be like, well, no, or well, yes, so you're very right, that kind of thing, or just somebody to hear what's going on. So I think that's also important to making sure that people can handle what it is you are giving to them.
Yeah. I think the other side of that is that the person that's getting that information is them also understanding that it's okay if you don't have any feedback. It's okay that you don't have something to say that will make your friend feel better, right? But what you're already doing is listening to them. And just like, at least for me, when someone just like hears me what I'm saying, like it makes me feel really good if that's what I needed. Just like, I just need to hear me someone, even if I'm being unreasonable in something, right? Like, I just need somebody to hear me what I said, right? And so like taking that idea of like you don't necessarily have to be, the therapist for your friend versus more of like just being there to listen to, and it's okay not to be able to do the others. Because I think people, at least I know I feel guilty of like, man, I felt like I wish I could have said something a bit more motivating or something a bit more healing to this person, and it's not always going to be like that. So like instead of keeping it transactional, just more of like, as you said, Jizzy, like sometimes you just need somebody to listen to.
I think we spent multiple times amongst us, like the girl group, just not saying anything, just either listening to each other talk about something or not saying anything at all. The biggest indicator of me that somebody needs something is a phone call that just has no content. And you know it's not a butt dial. You know it's not like, a mistake call. It's a call and then there's just silence. And just to just stay. I'm sorry, y'all. If you see me running back to this computer.
Sorry, I should have turned the camera off,
I'm
but
so
yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's just, I happen to like those phone calls a lot because it means to me if you're calling me, that means that I am a safe space for you, and I want to continue to make you feel like that, and also you're a safe space for me, and you understand that. Because from the moment time I tried to tell me how to fix my life, you're not one of those. But everybody in here, including the missing link tonight, is one of those for me. And of course, by extension, the rest of the group chat and the other friends. It's good to have community. You're muted, babes.
Yeah, I realize. Always. It's just I keep muting my mic because when I listen to our recordings, I realize we have very loud crickets and frogs in Grenada. And
Yeah.
listeners,
Dog,
y'all
let
are
me tell you
constantly
something.
bombarded by the sounds of the night and the dogs
In
and
the middle of the night.
everything. We're so
Let me
sorry.
tell you how bad my community is. My community crickets, my community frogs, my community cats, the jungle. Listen, I have tested this out. Last night, not a peep. Sunday night, not a peep. Saturday night, I couldn't tell. Friday night, not a peep. But you see, tonight, the drum
Every
corps
time you need
practicing.
to, every time you need to
Every
pause.
time I have to do this podcast, even yesterday, I had a Zoom class with one of my students, and I am actively listening. And I'm like, none of these godforsaken crickets are cricking, but they cricking tonight, though, and
Of
the
course
drum
they
corps.
are.
You had whole time to practice. You decide to practice tonight.
They want to
Don't
start.
tell them they're done. But they had the whole time. No, that's nonsense.
That
They
is
had after
Daryl's
school.
biggest annoyance when he's editing because he can't remove those sounds. He's like, we can't help it. I was like, I mean, it's still, I mean, it sounds fine anyways, but he's like, for him as an editor, he's like, oh God, those sounds are so prominent.
Nothing
It's
between.
upsetting.
That's
I
why I
have
keep
closed
trying to
my.
mute and just keep forgetting to unmute.
Mhm.
I know I forget to unmute myself. My windows are closed. And also, that dog you'll be hearing sometimes. That dog don't bark. That dog does not bark until it is
The
Tuesday. I am
funniest
so
thing ever.
serious.
Ah!
I forget they have a damn dog until I see them walking the dog or when it's Tuesday. Like that dog but you see, like when we have a Monday recording, the Tuesday the dog is barking, and I'm like, no, bitch, no. We recorded last night. And so
So the
now
dog
sometimes
is a
barks on a
hater.
Monday. He's a hating dog. Very cute, but also a hating dog because honest to God, guys, Ayana, have you ever been by me and heard that dog?
I can't say that I can remember hearing
No,
about.
because the only time it is here the dog is when Straight No Chaser is recorded. And I find that is against my mental health. Talk to the dog.
You will.
Sorry.
So the last question. Where does positive self-talk, distancing from people and situations, and tough love or hard conversations with ourselves and with the other people in our lives fit into good mental health care? So self-talk, so that's self-talk where it's like you had to talk to yourself like a big man, or that self-talk where you had to talk to other people like you's a big man and there's big men too, or just, distance, cutting off some, just
I okay to go first here. I am quicker to big man talk myself. I will beat myself up. I will beat myself up because you know what? Giselle is better than that. And honestly, Giselle is better than that. I will beat myself up there and I would distance because you see, conversations for me, there has to be some kind of back and forth. In my regular relationship once in life, as need banter, I also need banter in every facet, every aspect of my life, whether it be professional or stuff. Communication is very important to me. And if it is that you, whoever you are, and this is not a man specific thing, if it is that you are not receiving well or you are not responding in with the same kind of energy, like you get on a defensive or something like that, however you decide to respond, I know I can't control that. And I know I would also react, which is something that you can't control. So rather than, even though I know its conversations are important, rather than have to go through all of that for you to see my reaction, I to see your reaction, I rather just fall back for a portion. And then when there's a time where I think the conversation could be had, I'll have that. But more than like, first and foremost, talk to myself. That is first in the line of that mental health thing with me.
is falling back and talking to yourself like a big man always a bad thing? Or do you think that
No,
it gets a
no,
bad
no,
rap?
no.
Sounds
It gets a
distance.
bad rap. I think people take distancing as a negative thing when it's not always that. Sometimes it's just about preservation or even stepping back from in the heat of it to analyze the situation from different angles. Because when you're in the middle, you can really only just see right in front of you, your take on things. When you step back a bit, you could see another person's point of view. And that happens to me a lot of the time because I mouth off a significant amount. And then when I step back and I'm like, shit, and maybe apology is necessary. You see it from where somebody else is coming from, and then you're like, okay, all right. And then you give it time. Some things fizzle out. I hate a fizzle out. I like to be like, yo, hey, this, sorry, I don't want to do that again. Or if it fizzles out, I am very, very, very aware of trying to not let that happen again. And if something unlike it does happen again, I'm going to speak to the first time and not in a reproachful way, but in a this has happened before. And the last time I thought about it and I didn't like it. So I'm trying, actively trying not to do this again. But before for me the fallback is like a hindsight is 2020 kind of thing, just to try and make sure and see. And also it's mostly self-preservation. If I'm feeling attacked or I'm feeling a certain type of way, shut it down, wrap it up, take it home, rest it down, close the closet, burn the closet, go and watch TV until I'm ready to pick up the ashes and see how it goes. But yeah, me, when I talk to myself, I'm like, is that right now you're in shambles. You're in shambles, and it's okay. But at some point, you need to not be in shambles. Pick yourself up because you have shit to do. You have people depending on you. You're depending on yourself. You have things that you want to be able to do for yourself. So you need to get out of it. And like Ayana said, sometimes you just have to let yourself feel, let yourself be sad, let yourself be angry, let yourself be whatever, and then come out of it and step forward like the bad bitch that you really are.
There you go. You're on mute.
And she well egging on.
I
Oh
was
God.
saying things. I'm
Oh no, yeah.
so
Just keep it's okay. It's all good. The
gosh.
sound is actually not that prominent. And it is what it is. We live in the Caribbean.
Mm.
Okay, okay.
Um, where does it fit in? Obviously, every day, and I'm just kidding. We know that that's an
You're
intention.
married to Daryl now. That was a very Friday thing.
Um, that's I think everybody would have the intent that like, oh yeah, I can reflect on everything, on every interaction that comes my way, and I can be big man and talk to myself. And we know that's not the case for an everyday scenario. Would that be ideal? Maybe not even that as well. But like I think in that same thing, like what Jizzy was saying of like it at minimum, it should be in scenarios where you felt tested or even where you felt challenged on anything, right? Whether it means your beliefs or how you just felt about something or somebody that specific day, what mood you were in, right? Like, I mean, let's be honest, you can be in a crappy mood for also no reason, right? It's not that something happened.
Yeah. Sometimes you
And
just have to.
so having those conversations of like, oh, why are you in this mood today? Because I fucking feel like it, right? Or like, and if that's the case, like, how do we come back from that? So having those conversations, but same thing, Jizzy, as you said, of like, even in scenarios where you feel challenged or you feel like, oh, this just specific interaction made me feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I need to step back for a second and identify why am I uncomfortable? Is it that this person actually makes sense, right? And now I need to update my thought process, or like I really still don't agree with this person, but is there an area where I could just still be okay that we don't agree instead of popping off and so forth?
Yeah.
It's a learned skill
Is
because I am
and it
also
takes
like
a sense of
reactionary.
maturity. It takes maturing to be able to recognize that sometimes, like, it's natural to have an emotional response or a human response to a situation, but
Yeah,
it takes a certain sense of self and sense of knowing self and, yeah, maturity
yeah,
to step back and say, you know, in this moment, is this reaction necessary? In this moment, how do I feel? In this moment, and just acknowledging if you are afraid or if you are anxious or if you are feeling like really sad or really emotional for whatever reason, even if you feel like in the situation, it's like not justifiable. Like there's no reason I should be angry. There's no reason. Like just recognize,
yeah,
okay, first of all, I'm angry and I'm human and that's okay. And just giving yourself a few minutes there to just be angry, emotional, but not let your actions um come out of that place. Not
yeah,
letting the next words that you speak or the next decision that you make be rooted in like that anger. Just allowing yourself to just be human and then allowing the emotion sometime to like pass and then talk to yourself like a big man.
yeah. Even identifying like why am I acting this way? Is it because this person said something similar that another person said to me that I no longer like or not attached to, or like that person had a very different agenda versus like this person who was actually trying to explain something to me, right? So I think that's like the getting down to like why did I feel this way, but also being okay with not knowing that answer immediately. So like showing, we say it in our chat all the time, showing each other grace, showing ourselves, giving ourselves grace of like, you know what? Like, yeah, I was pissed. Yeah, I may have popped off, but like I'm gonna give myself grace to come back to this if I feel willing to do so and try to understand why I felt this way. And if that leads to a conversation of like chatting with that person of like, let me just share with you why, if you feel comfortable enough. Or as Jizzy said, like if it's something that just gets washed off, then also just understanding that like I now know I'm not gonna act like that,
Yeah.
later, or that would be the intent. Of course, not everything's not going to be perfect, but that would be the intent. So yeah, I think at least at minimum the place that it comes into would be on scenarios that like for me at least, that things that are that challenge me of like, this is what I did for 38 years, what are you talking about, kind of scenario.
I think we also learn over time what situations are worth fighting over. Because even when we, like, not everything is worth your energy. Not everything is worth putting up a fight over. Is it necessary to,
Yeah, not
uh,
everything needs to be said.
yeah, that part. Not everything, not because it comes to your mind means it has to come out your mouth. What is worth your mental health?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had
What
to learn that
like
too.
what is worth your mental health? Like, is this a situation that requires you to activate 1,000% Ayana? No. Is this something that I'm gonna think about tomorrow? No. So am I gonna give myself the stress of following through with this, whatever it is? And sometimes it's things that might just seem big in the moment. And again, you step back, you talk to yourself like a big man, and you realize, wait, come on.
And then too, sometimes we have to realize that what is big for you is not what is big for you, and it was not big for you.
For
So,
her,
like, I mean, for
for her,
you,
oh,
you,
for moi,
you,
for moi.
you,
Oh,
you.
hmm.
Yeah, like we've had conversations, and some friends would be like, "So, Jiz, why don't you have a conversation with so and so?" And I'm like, "Nah." And they're like, "Yeah, you should because da da da." But I know for myself that that conversation is not worth my time. It's not worth my time. I have an idea of how it's gonna go. So, and that is something that I could easily let go. And then there are situations where like, so just why you bothering about that? Because this is big to me. And excuse me, but yeah, this is big to me and it has to be said. So you kind of like, yeah, a little introspection is needed, especially when you have to deal with your triggers, not little, but your triggers and your traumas and your whatever you want to call it. Introspection is necessary for you to know what is the best way for you to deal with certain things because not everybody is going to advise you the way that you should handle something. They more than likely be going to advise you how we would handle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
And
lot of
not
times now,
everybody trigger, not every trigger that you have that somebody, if somebody triggers you, not everybody's out to get you, one, and not
Yeah.
mhm,
everything is, yeah, exactly that. Not everybody's out to get you, and not every trigger that you have becomes responsibility of all the people around you. I don't know if
it's
if
true.
that is the
Yes.
correct thing to say, but like I just feel like everybody's, yes, mental health is important, and we do need to, you know, be more conscious of our own mental health and the mental health of others, but also not everybody problem is your problem. You don't need to tiptoe around people, and also people don't need to tiptoe around you. You have to leave room for just life and, deal with your shit, yes, but then it shouldn't become, I don't know how to say this without it sounding bad, so let me stop.
I think it's
For
like that idea.
example,
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think it's like that idea of what might be a big deal to you may not be a big deal to another person. And what I want to say there's like, let's just say two people in a room, you saw something happen, you reacted a certain way. More often than not, that person that has reacted is expecting that other person to also react to the same way to the situation. And that's where the disconnect lies. And then if that happens, first person actually gets mad of like, why didn't you think it was a big deal that this person did yada yada yada, versus like that person might be like, I didn't see
Think it
the
was a
issue
big
here.
deal,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know what I mean? And so like that ends up being causes of a lot of issues and fights too. But yeah, I agree with what you were saying. Yeah, it's just like sometimes it's okay to understand that what's a big deal to you is not a big deal to
Yeah.
somebody.
yeah.
And if it is, and it's also okay to explain to them why you felt it was a big deal with also understanding that they will still not agree, but now they understand why you're thinking that.
Yeah, and I think I learned a lot, like how different it is for us, like as individuals, being in a group chat. Like, I mean, we've had a number of conversations where we've gone out and certain things have happened, and the person, whoever was involved in the situation, is either very hype, and I'm like, but also I am hearing that this particular thing was triggering to you. I am not triggered by it. I don't think if I was in the same situation, I would behave like that. However, That is not for me. This has to do with you. So whatever you need to do to handle that, I'm here for you. There's also times when the reaction is underwhelming and you're like, why aren't you mad AF? And also, that person does not react in the same way that you would. So, I have to understand that that's not a big deal for you. It's a flaming red flag for me, but it's not a red flag for you. That you're able to handle that. So, okay. And yeah, so I learned that from being in the group chat and just watching how everybody takes things differently. And you just have to respect how they choose to respond and you just have to let people do what they know to do for themselves because they know themselves better than we know.
Mm.
They know. Because also sometimes if you were to take on everything that was actually, repression is kind of helpful sometimes because if you were to act right off the dome, a lot of people would be in terrible situations. So people have their mechanisms to kind of offset those triggers that they have in order to just survive and then figure it out after. So we got to be mindful about that too.
I'm gonna just read through the responses really quickly because I just realized I didn't do that yet. But to reiterate the question. Where does positive self-talk? Oh Lord, I lost it. Okay.
Rohan, we miss you.
No.
I'm not fucking you,
Where
but
does
not fucking
positive self-talk, distancing from people and situations, and tough love, sorry, or hard talks with ourselves and others fit into mental health care? And the people's said, this should be a daily healthy part of communication, beginning with yourself. So I guess that's the self-talk and the tough conversations with yourself. Setting boundaries where needed, and positive self-talk is our inner dialogue. Being intentional about positive thoughts are key because we are programmed to be negative. I don't think I agree that we're programmed to be negative, but I do understand. Next. This person says, let me leave this one for last. Oh, this is the last. Where does it fit? They said in their pocket and on top the fridge.
Someone avoiding. That's basically what they're saying. They said, I don't do it.
I don't want to laugh.
I know.
We laughing.
I get
I
that
think it's
though as
funny.
well. I get that though too though. I'm just like, I'm gonna act like it didn't happen. Didn't need to do anything. Been there.
Yes.
Oh man. Diz, I know you said there was like a couple of questions you had for us.
Yes.
Really?
I mean, I feel like based on the conversation that we had, you guys know Ollie. Sorry.
Mhm.
Um, Based on the conversation that we had, I think we spoke to it, but still it would be good to just mention it in questioning because I think when you have a friend group, for those who are listening to us, it's really important that you know your friends and you're able to, help when they need the help without them saying they need the help. So the question was, what are some of your methods of coping with your own mental health issues? And I think we did share a little bit each on that. I believe I said that drinking water is a good way to calm me down and being at home watching TV, listening to music, that kind of vibe, but
So
just
you're
being
essentially
by
saying
myself.
like maybe like when you're right in the midst of it. So very
Yeah,
different
like
from like maintaining mental health, but like in the midst of
yeah,
actual.
nah, in the middle
Yeah.
of like a crisis.
Oh,
Y'all know I disappear. Y'all know I disappeared.
yeah, I would say disappear also. Disappear as in like I don't want to be around anybody. Like I'm at home with, my parents and my husband and I'm just like, see ya. And I'll go on for me actually, when I do that, I go on a drive and people be like, you want me to come with you? I'm like, nope. You're not coming with me. Or I will literally go in my bedroom and just be like, as you said, zone out, maybe to just watch something on, streaming service. So I don't think it's an area of like where I'm like, oh yeah, let me do the yoga therapy that Malika
Mm.
took me through, or I'm gonna go on a run now. Sometimes, yes, I will be like, I'm gonna go on a run right now or go for a walk. But more often it's more of like, I just need some space. I don't want to talk. A lot of times it's also because like I talk a lot throughout the day in meetings, and so I'm just like, my anxiety might be a little bit high right now. I don't want to talk to anybody about this. And yeah, same thing, just kind of taking my own space because mainly I know that that will lead to a point of agitation for me, and I don't want to be rude to at least anybody in the household that's trying to help me. Like I'm just going to be very snappy, and that's one of the reasons of like I need to just be on my own for whatever long it may be, 30 minutes, an hour. I might even say good night and I'll see you in the, go to sleep and see you in the morning if I can get to the point of sleeping. But yeah, that same. I just kind of remove myself a little bit.
Yeah. I think for me, because a lot of like when I'm going through stuff, most of my day, most of the week, I'm alone. I live
Yeah.
alone. So most of the time when whatever crisis starts, it starts in a place of isolation, I would say. And I would stay there for a bit, maybe deal with it how I can. But then at a certain point, what helps me is community. So I would reach out to my friends and yeah, whatever it is. Maybe it's just a phone call. Maybe it's a visit. Maybe somebody comes by me. Maybe it's we go out for a drink or a walk on the beach, or maybe, I go do an activity. Full stop. Um, I was gonna make it through if I didn't look at you, Giselle.
Okay, sorry.
But yeah, I would say community. I think having having good friends, great friends, and I think we've all learned over the past couple years, couple months, the importance of your chosen family. We've learned that yes, we're all, very close to our actual family and we love them, but sometimes we don't have a lot of things in common with the people that we have a lot of DNA in common with. They don't always understand us, or we don't always understand them. And even though we can find like great relationships with family, sometimes it's the people, the chosen family sometimes it really understands what you need and when you need it. And so I thank God for you guys.
Aw.
I would
Yeah,
say y'all are how I cope.
Oh,
Yeah.
will that be ants?
yeah.
Me
It's good
too.
to know. It's good to know because you need so like sometimes you just know. Like I think a few weeks ago, I don't know if I was active in any group chat because I was just like, huh. And I think Ro messaged me. She called me and she was like, I was like, what you want? Like I didn't answer the phone like that, but I was like, what you want? Where you come for? She was like, bitch, I ain't here for like 2 days. You okay? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. Like I just sometimes you're just in a blast space, and that's where I was, but I really hadn't said much of anything. And y'all know I talk shit like on a daily, so not hearing me, she was like, something is wrong or something like that. And I think that we can being able to identify that is really important in a friend group, especially like us, because many of us are solo livers.
Yeah.
Many of us live with family, but also, family could be very taxing and all of that. So, and then we have such high paced life sometimes, even though I don't go on do much of anything. Work is a kind of thing that gets to us. And so it's very important to be able to identify if your friends are okay. You need to check. You need to be able to know, because you don't want it somebody that something happens and you're like, I didn't know. I didn't know. But the next question I had was, um, where am I? What are some of your needs when you're in the middle of a breakdown or going down a rabbit hole? Like, what are some of your needs?
That's a good
Mm,
question.
my
Yeah.
immediate thing when I'm in the middle of a breakdown is I give myself some Reiki. I think that's the first thing that helps me. Just, you know, a couple moments to just like ground myself. Self-talk in the middle of a breakdown. Talk, just saying what the situation is, just stating the facts, listening to the facts and separating the emotion from the facts and seeing a path through and kind of just strategizing a way out of the situation if it is possible to say, okay, whatever it is, maybe, I don't know, maybe I have a flat tire. Just be like, okay, it's just a flat tire. People get flat tires all the time. What's the first thing I need to do? Can I fix this myself? Do I have the tools that I need? Is my spare in good repair? Who should I call first? Just kind of talking myself through. Where am I? Where's the closest place that I could get some help? So what do I have on me or with me right now that I could help myself in this situation?
Yeah. I think mine is my need is the ability to express without being interrupted. And I think, and what I'm saying here is like people naturally have the good intention of like trying to jump in, as we said, right? To help, to give feedback, to like say, like, why don't you try this? Or like, oh, don't worry, like it's not a big deal, or like it'll get fixed. Anything for that matter. It's like, so for me, it's the ability to be able to express without being interrupted, right? And if even if what I'm saying comes out in gibberish, right? Or comes out into like you're not even getting like what's my point. It's like I need to be able to, as you said, Ian, it's like say it out loud. Like when I'm ready to talk, say it, right? Say it out loud. Um, without and like the weirdest thing too is like I realize that when I'm in that state or do get anxiety, like my body is really sensitive. So like, and what I mean by that is like, don't come and hug me because I'm gonna feel very claustrophobic. Like I'm gonna feel like it's my personal space. Like all I want to do is just say what I need to say. Don't come and hug me. Like, and as I said, naturally people want to come and console, right? Like it's a human thing. And I realize that actually it's crazy because I'm also a hugger at the same time, but it makes in those scenarios like my skin is extra sensitive or like it just
Mm.
amplifies it even further, you know? So it's like which Daryl is learning. But so yeah, the ability to express and also making sure that you don't come into my personal space, no matter what, how good your intention is in that case.
Uh, I think for me, my immediate need, whatever it is I'm going through that has brought me to that place, I need to express it, as B said. But for me, I could express it to any one of the persons that I hold close enough to tell them what's going on, or I could express it to myself. I just need to verbalize it. It needs to be verbalized, and because that way I make sense of it. When it's out loud, I can hear it from somebody else, from another perspective, or I could put it into perspective myself. And then I think one of the other things that I need, well, there's two things. It's a kind of on each end of the spectrum. I either need to be by myself to continue verbalizing this thing and talk to myself and stare at the ceiling and do what I do, or I need to be distracted because I am an overthinker and I will think about it for at least 40 days and 40 nights. But by the time I have said it out loud and I have done my thing, which is probably going to cry about it, I either stay by myself or I would need a distraction. So it's just for me to know what kind of situation it is, to know which one I would need. If it's dire, when it has to do with finances or family shit, that is things that I would want to, figure out on my own. if it's anything else work related, interpersonal relationships, non-platonic relationships, more than likely I would take a moment to be distracted from it because, so those are my needs. But I think people who listening, I think it is very important that you tell your friends, that mm, core group of people, if they don't already know, just what your needs are when you're going through it, because there's going to be a time when they're going to need to show up for you, and they need to be able to know if you're showing up, show up with a roti and coconut water, even if she's not answering your calls. And this is the last time I'm going to bring this up with Diane.
I do have
I
a
was prepared
question.
to let it go, but
Uh,
since you reminded me,
Hey, we were talking about it, and I just brought it up because it fits into the situation. We are letting it go. We've let it go. It is gone. It is without us.
I do have a question for both of you. Even our listeners can, if they want to send us a message on this too. Like, has there ever been a time, and if you, of course, if you're comfortable answering, has there been ever a time where like your mental health kind of surrounded around the idea of like not belonging someplace? So, for example, like in the position that you're in at work, in a project that you're a part of, anything like that? And like what, I guess, what were you feeling, or your thoughts that were coming up that felt made you feel like I don't belong, even though you
hmm,
clearly did.
um,
Um, very honestly, around my camera's doing somewhere. Okay. Um, around 2000 and when did I move? Yeah, I think I moved back in 2011. So between 2009 and 2011, I was feeling very out of place home.
Mm.
And a lot of people think that I came back here because I had a boyfriend at the time, which is part of it too. But the discomfort I felt at home in my house was so real because you go away, you live by yourself for a while, you come back, you add your button heads with family and so on, and just it was really difficult for me. It was really bad for me. I don't know if anybody home noticed it or whatever. I can't say, and I know my sister was significantly smaller, so she may not have remembered. But I could not do it. I could not do it. I felt not safer, but I felt more at home when I came over on vacations and stuff like that because I didn't have a lot of all of the things that I had on my back. So a lot of times I was in my room just by myself a lot of the time. And I would find reasons to leave home to go wherever and then come back. And it would just be like a downtrodden kind of feeling, which is one of the reasons why I decided that I would come. I found something to do. I found a plan. The plan was to do a master's or something. Thank God I didn't do that because Jano. But I found a reason to come, and I set up myself in order to because I could not stay.
So
I
that's
could
a good
not do
ex
it.
that's a good example of like, you should not be here, and
Yeah,
moving on to like something that would make you feel, as you said, essentially more
yeah.
complete in what you're doing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think I felt that way in my work. Um, because I don't want to say I was out of academia for a while. I was teaching for a while, but I wasn't actively a student for a while. And then, leaving that, doing my master's, and then going into an entirely different field. I came from a medical background, medical science background, an art background, an education background, and then decided to, make this career change. And really, I would say getting lucky off the bat and getting a pretty good job, it kind of, it was, yeah, that feeling of like, do I deserve this? That feeling of like, yeah, am I, that imposter syndrome is what they call it. And I didn't think that it was something I would feel. And
Yeah.
I don't always feel it. Sometimes I feel like I'm really doing what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm, where I'm supposed to be. But then sometimes I'm like, this for me though? Like, ugh, kind of stuff. Even sometimes I would say in a different way in some of our social groups in Grenada, because a lot of our social groups are so cliquey and are based on like ridiculous relationships, like because you went to primary school or preschool, or it's all of these kind of dynamics where in other situations that I've been in, I haven't had to have deep connections with people. I mean, I'm lucky that I am Grenadian, so I do have childhood friends, but it still is difficult connecting with people here. And so even in social spaces, I do feel that kind of a do I belong kind of feeling. And that kind of gives me some anxiety.
Yeah. I mean, I think along the same lines has been in my field of work. None of my educational background is in relation to what I do today. And in true honesty, I'm sure some of my clients don't want to hear this, but I'll say it. I've self-taught as I went along, right? So it's like when we really think about the function, the term of faking, what is it?
Making
Faking,
it till you make
fake
it.
it till you make it. I feel pretty confident that I did that for like a good portion in the beginning because it was kind of like I've always been good at like presenting things, talking through things, listening, right? Um, but then I would go back and like research and be like, all right, let's just make sure. And so like for a while, especially when you're in an environment where people are heavily relying on your advice, right? And your strategy on things that you're going to recommend, I was in a space of like, gosh, like, you know, am I right for this? These people are depending on me to make business decisions and like as the bigger like the size of like the customer got, right? The imposter syndrome increased as well. And I was just like, and it took me a while, like someone literally had to sit me down and be like, but you do realize the reason why the customer size is growing is because
You're
they've
good
seen
at
your
what
work.
you do. Yeah.
They've seen what you do, has nothing to do with how much industry knowledge you have. It's more of like me doing the work of like, I know myself. That's one thing I'm confident about. It's like I know I can do the work. And if I don't know something, I'm very big on figuring it out, like finding it out, finding that solution and so on. And but I had it. I was like, wow. And like, and especially like, when you see the impact monetary wise, right? And you're looking at that and you're just like, do I deserve that? Do I, and like, but when the data is there, even knowing and looking at the data that's there, that's supporting that, hey, you're good at what you do, it's still a question that I ask myself, like, oh my God, like, am I, and so it's crazy, but I've always that has gotten better, but there's a point of like, oh my gosh, like, should I be doing some of this, like, for free or whatever it is? And it's like, obviously no, but it took me a while. It took me a while to be like, you know, I don't have any industry knowledge for this specific customer, therefore I should not even be speaking to them versus pivoting that and being like, I know my shit. Maybe I didn't know it on the first call, but like on the second, third, fourth meeting, whatever, I know my shit. So I still deal with that, but it for me, it's been the data that's backed it up. I'm a very big data person. And the other side of time, I feel that is actually with this podcast. So, and it's weird. So, like when we think about this podcast, right, we've got our amazing content creator, Ro. We know that, like, so for our listeners, all those templates that you see, those beautiful templates, that is all Ro creating it. She's created like the branding, our color schema, fonts, all of that. When it comes to captioning, it is our amazing Jizzy that does that. I'm the one bugging her every week. And then of course, Yans, you come in and bring in like those very thoughtful questions. So like sometimes
I'm the editing person. I like the notes too.
yes, and she's
That's
the
my
notes, right?
that's
And
my
so like
favorite part
for
of the
me,
day.
like I mean, I used to be a little bit quieter on the podcast because I'm just like, oh my gosh, like there's so many cool people here that are talking about so many great things. Like, does what I say even actually
You think we're
matter?
cool?
Yeah, I
You
mean,
think we are
obviously, come on. I mean, I
cool?
wouldn't hang out with you if you weren't cool. I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? So like even that of like understanding, like even though I may not be familiar with content creation, with things that we post and how, when, and why we should post them, to how we should word things to have a better outreach. I had a little bit of that. I was like, okay, well, I'll just make sure I try to talk, where I can talk, but I've been talking more, which is good. But yeah, so I had a little bit of that. I'm like, should I be doing? Am I a good person for this podcast? Am I outdated? Am I this? Am I that? So yeah.
Outdated never.
Yeah, but I think that's where it helps when, as we said, like you have the people that support you. So like you guys and my work stuff, I have the data that supports it, that, you know, I'm a badass. So
You are a badass.
you
Can you
do,
hear me,
but
sir?
like, but you still feel that, right? Like you're still gonna be like, oh my gosh, like, am I the right person for this? So
Of course you are.
yeah,
You're
thank
the
you.
perfect person for this.
Thank you. Oh,
This was great. Nice chat.
yeah, I
Yeah,
love it.
it was nice. I thought it would be heavier. I thought I would have cried.
Really? You still
Yes.
can?
What? What you said?
I
You
said you
said you
still
still
can.
can.
Oh, I can. I could cry after. I'm telling you. I cried this weekend.
Did you?
I did, but when I tell all you off, you'll be like, bitch, what?
I may not.
No, you will definitely be like, bitch, what?
Oh,
You definitely. I'm
it
telling you.
doesn't sound like me.
It will be you when I tell you. I'm expecting a bitch what from everybody.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. But it was a nice conversation, guys. And thank you to the peoples for sharing with us once again.
Yes. Ah.
Ah, wow.
Jizzy lost his time, y'all. She touched her nose last
Wow.
for our
I
Guys,
outro.
prepared to say my line,
yes,
so
we know.
just look in my direction.
Yeah. I mean, do you know where you are?
Or wherever you get your
Oh my no, that's not what I was telling you to do now. I'm saying if I look in your
Oh,
direction, do you know who I'm looking at? Put it back. Put it back.
you're
Put it
looking
back.
at me? I feel
Put
like
it
you're
back.
looking at me.
Put it back, babes. Put it back. Not yet, right?
My line.
Okay, good. So we have your line and we're doing it. Okay, guys. So thank you so much for participating in our episode on the mental health. We really do promote safe mental health practices for yourself and for the people that you love around you. Thank you for answering our poll. Thank you for sharing with us. It really means a lot to us. We talk about y'all in our group chat. Actually,
How
B
much we
said,
love
oh
y'all.
my God, I'm loving the interactions from our listeners today. So it's really sweet of you. Of course, if this is your first time hearing us, please do follow us on Instagram at straightnotechaser.podcast. In the link in our bio, you're going to find us. We're going to be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the YouTubes, Anchor, or
Wherever you get your podcasts.
good job.
Boom.
Good
Love
job.
it.
Remember, when you are looking at us on the YouTubes, you can see our pretty faces. Or if you just want to hear our beautiful voices, you can just click the links that we have and you can listen to everything that we would have shared before. Send us messages. Let us know what you would like to hear us talk about. And also send us messages and tell us what's your favorite alcohol, because I don't think that we have been doing the alcohols as
We
much.
have not been alcoholing, and if you are associated with an alcohol brand, please sponsor an episode. Give us some alcohol to drink. We will big you up. We will
Listen,
get drunk in your
we will
honor.
listen, and that will probably be one of the best episodes because we're gonna be there like, girl, let me tell you what happened. And it's gonna be off the chain, no filter, straight, no chaser. Oh, look at that. That came full circle.
It did.
There you
It did. This
go.
was a great episode, very wholesome. Don't worry, there's more dirtiness in your future, but mental health was really important to us, and I'm happy we got a chance to talk about it.
Bye,
Bye
y'all.
guys.